Young Justice Season 4 returned this week to HBO Max with a brand new episode entitled Leviathan Awakes. I'm Cape Joel, and this is the video series where I give my thoughts and feelings on the episode that was, as well as shouting out any comic book Easter eggs or references I can find. So with that done and out of the way, let's get to it, shall we? As we join the episode proper, King Arion, and yes, that is his Atlantean name. For some reason, a bunch of different people in my comments section from last week didn't understand why I was calling him this, is still desperately trying to work out the truth behind the return of his brother Orm. He has reason to believe that Ocean Master is actually a light clone, and thanks to the help of Ms.Martian, the good guys are able to confirm the truth. I like this scene and this whole little subplot a lot because the heroes are truly not unsympathetic to the plight of cloned Orm. He didn't ask for any of this, and they've seen firsthand with Will and Jim Harper that clones are indeed people with their own thoughts and feelings who deserve their own pursuit of happiness. Now, all the other leaders of Atlantis' city-states have convened in Zebel to discuss the current unrest surrounding the return of the supposed ancient King Arion. Also, a little bit of a correction from last week. I mixed up my comic book mermaids. I thought I was looking at Lisa Morrill, the first Aqua Girl, but I was actually looking at Lori Lamaris, who, believe it or not, dated Superman back during the weird old Silver Age of comics. Heck, she was even resurrected by Frank Miller for a Superman story in 2019. The delegation of leaders think that the only way to save Atlantis is to vote right now on installing King Arion to the throne, lest they'd be faced with a full-on rebellion from their own people. King Arion wishes to hold the vote as long as possible, though, as he sent Kaldur'ahm and his team on a secret mission to try and retrieve Arion's crown, the only item that can prove one way or another whether this Arion is real or fake. Turns out Kaldur'ahm and his team have actually been looking for weeks, and we know this because two of the guys now have scraggly beards. You think the reason the former Aqualad doesn't grow a beard of his own is because he fears that it might make him look like his biological father, Black Manta? That's my headcanon, at least. Lagan, of all people, ends up getting some very unexpected but very appreciated character growth this episode when he learns about Connor's death and how it's weighing on Aquaman's mind. Lagan admits part of him still held a very childish grudge against Superboy for the love triangle they were both involved in all the way back in Season 2, but thankfully since then he's grown and matured and says he wishes he could have said his sorries to Connor back when he was still alive. Now, the path to the crown is guarded by monsters, and our heroes come into conflict right away with a giant enemy crab, one that moves or doesn't move in a very jarring way. At first I thought the show might be doing a riff on the whole Ray Harryhausen 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea type of sea monsters, wherein the creatures look unreal and inhuman to up the dread, but honestly, I don't think this was a charm thing. I think this was yet another example of cost cutting. When the good guys do make it to the ruins of old Atlantis, they find a skeleton that will look very familiar to viewers who have been paying attention. Yep, that's right. Turns out the real Arion did indeed meet his fate when Atlantis first sunk, and that I was ultimately right after all, and that immortal doesn't always mean invulnerable. But if real Arion is dead, then what's up with the imposter? Well, as Ms.Martian manages to figure out, thanks to a now cooperating Orm clone, Vandal Savage and the Light had masterminded a whole scheme to put the rescued brain of the real Ocean Master into the cloned body of Arion. From there, fake Orm would create chaos, and the new Arion would swoop on in and be heralded as a hero, in doing so giving the Light the puppet leader they always wanted. Ocean Master was happy to go along with all of this, no doubt happy just in general to not be dead anymore, but also to try and worm his way back into Vandal's good graces while also becoming King of Atlantis, which, let's face it, is the only plot that Ocean Master ever seems to have, even if this time they did put a whole face-off spin on the whole thing. Turns out the vote to install Arion is a landslide, by the way, or ocean slide as the case may be. The people want Arion, and they want him bad. He saved Atlantis twice already, which must be really insulting if you're Aquaman, because he saved Atlantis and the surface like a billion times. Damn, these Atlanteans really do have goldfish memories, don't they? This means that our big climax of the episode is Kaldur'ahm and his friends rushing to get the crown back to Zebel and prove the new king is a pretender, and honestly, this turns out to be super easy, barely an inconvenience in fact. Remember how it took them weeks to get down to the ruins? Well, they just hitchhike a ride on the back of a giant sea monster, no doubt the Leviathan of the title, and before you know it, they're right where they need to be, no fuss, no muss. And if you're like me, you're probably thinking, wow, this is one hell of a predicament our heroes find themselves in. The people, for better or worse, have spoken. King Arion is the rightful king by law. The heroes just can't try and unseat him. If they do, they could end up destabilizing all of Atlantis and making themselves enemies of the state. Yeah, well, hey, no worries, because none of that matters. Arion wants to wear the crown as a final screw you to his most hated brother, but little does he know that the crown isn't just a piece of metal, it's a powerful gift from the Lords of Order, who disintegrate him in a shockingly gory fashion for daring to even try and wear it. Well, damn, I guess that problem really did just kind of solve itself, didn't it? And I mean, okay, it's one thing for Orm not to know that that could happen to him, but Vandal really should have known better, shouldn't he? He's dealt with the real Arion and the Lords of Order for millions of years. It just feels like a super oversight on his part. With Arion dead, the question becomes who will lead Atlantis now, and Orin makes a great pitch for his wife Mara. She's a princess and a sorcerer and a hero and a leader and the best woman he's ever known, so why not make her king too? And you know what? Everyone loves this idea, including Mara's own deadbeat dad and even a bunch of the D-list Aquaman villains. A fitting conclusion to Mara's story too, as she was indeed Queen of Atlantis as early as 2018 in the comics. She even got her first ever own miniseries off the back of it, which is kinda cool. This seismic change also frees up Arthur to go back to being a superhero and Aquaman, which, let's face it, is all he ever really wanted to do in his major character arc for this season. Orin even wants Kaldur to keep sharing the Aquaman name with him, and again, it only makes sense because there is, no kidding, a book on the shelves right now literally called Aquaman. And you know what? Even Lagan gets in on the Aquaman action too, getting a full promotion for himself, which is good because he certainly couldn't be Lagoon Boy forever. Maybe now they can have an Aquaman serving the surface and one serving the oceans, and maybe people won't get so pissy at them. Oh, but we're not done yet because we got a lightning round of wrap-up to cover. Clone Orm is allowed to go free, no telling what will become of him, though Aquaman hopes that the two of them can make a go at being real brothers one day. Dr. Fate comes to mock Vandal Savage over his failures with Atlantis once again, something that is becoming a real major recurring theme in his life. And lastly, we have Connor Kent, who is still trapped in the ghost dimension. He sees Clarion's magic dimension hopping bus, meaning that this storyline is now officially all caught up with everything else. We're also treated to a vision of Luthor, who once again invokes the Red Sun Project. And so that was Leviathan Wakes, everyone, and overall I thought it was a fine finale to this Aquaman-centric arc. Not great, mind you, certainly not one of my favorites, but fine. My big problem is just how easily everything was wrapped up at the end. Everything just sort of sorted itself out, didn't it? Orm was hung by his own hubris and lack of information. Atlantis was fractured beyond repair, but rallies behind Mira pretty quickly without much resistance. I mean, yes, she was obviously the right choice for the job, but the people took very little selling, didn't they? Kaldur ultimately does learn to relax and take a breather and deal with his past trauma, but it doesn't feel like he had a real moment of self-reflection. He just sort of does it at the end. The whole brain-swapping clone concept was cool, but it feels like just when we truly understood what was going on, it was already over. Another thing you may or may not have noticed is that Carrie Payton, superstar voice actor and Kaldur's own voice, just so happened to write this episode. It was his first writing credit ever, in fact, one that he certainly deserved and one that I certainly find cool. I just wish his debut was in an episode that felt a little less flat. Again, taken as a whole, this was not a bad arc. It was nice checking in with the Atlantean characters, seeing how their society has grown and changed over the years, and seeing the new position they're in now with brand new leadership. I just wish it all ended stronger is all I'm saying. But that'll just about do it for me for another week, everyone. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, be sure to like and subscribe, follow me on Twitter so you're always up to date when the newest Young Justice video drops. And before people ask me in the comments section, yes, I am aware that Greg Weisman is going to be writing a brand new Young Justice comic series. Yes, I do plan to cover it on the channel. Yes, I am most definitely excited.